Aloha kako, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Nerd Fights. I am your host, Dr. Spaceman, the Spaceman, Alan Shepard, whatever you want to call me. Just please don't call me at 3 o'clock in the morning. Wait, it already happened. It already happened. You guys called me at 3 o'clock in the morning. What are we doing here? What are we doing? Well, we're having a nerd battle between two gentlemen who have been no stranger to the trivia game, the online community game, just all around everywhere over here. That is David and Papa West, Jacob West. We're excited to have this battle today. So excited that I had to get up bright and early to do this. David, how you feeling? This is your first venture foray into the debate. So how you feeling about this so far?
Not good, actually. I realized while I was getting ready for this that English is not my forte, and that has been known on the community for a while now. One of my gimmicks is that I miss questions because of translation. So, I will just do whatever I can, and it's the topics that are going to be talked about I like, so I just like talking geek, so I don't really care about winning because I don't think I will. So I just talked myself into not caring.
Oh, excellent. Well, I understood about 30% of that, so that's perfect. Actually, no, a whole lot more. Your skills improve every single day. This will be a lot of fun, and of course, Papa West, you are definitely no stranger to these debates. How you feeling today?
I'm doing good. Finally getting to take someone on in Nerd Fights for the first time ever. Super excited about that. But I don't know why Subratha is trying to create this rivalry with MTFO, because I just took on Hillbilly Scribs. Now I'm taking on David. Like, Subratha, why are you doing this? We want to be friends with everyone else. We don't want to create rivalries. But okay, I'll just do whatever.
Do what you got to do. All right, and I can't do this alone. I've got the two distinguished judges with me today. The man right over here is Andrew the Elk. The Elk, how are you feeling this morning?
Well, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here, aside from the fact that I am up a little earlier than usual today, as are a number of people on the call. I have not had my coffee, so expect some harsh judgment. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to take everything I hear at face value. Obviously, I've known David for a while. We worked together over at the movie Trivia Face-Off. Big fan of the debate format, and I've got my nerdiest shirt on, as you can see. A matchup between the original Dungeons & Dragons players' manuals and Stranger Things. I'm ready to go, ready to hear these arguments. Can't wait.
No fitting shirt for the Nerd Fights here. It's perfect, absolutely perfect. And then Madith right over here, also early for you, sir. How are you feeling this morning?
Considering what time it is, I'm okay. Like I'm all right. I haven't been up this early since I actually had to do something outside. So this is good. I'm getting back into the swing of things before
there you go
opening up. So I'm feeling good. I'm excited to hear some of these debates. There's one question in particular that I think we're all kind of intrigued by. Not to do any spoilers, but I'm ready to go. I'm excited. Let's get this started.
Excellent. All right. Yes, I'm very excited myself to hear the answers to some of these questions. I don't know who pulled these questions out of where, but we're excited to hear these answers. So we've got our usual Nerd Fight rounds. We've got our 3 rounds, 3 section rounds. We've got our first 90-second opener. That'll be your opening statement, basically your premise of your argument. Then our 5-minute debate round, where the two will go at each other, tooth and claw, or scratch and claw, if you will. And then our 60-second closing statement to wrap your argument on up. And then the judges will partake in whichever one they like the most. Now, we do have the 1-minute extension that you can add to your 90 or your 60, your opening or your closing. If you choose to use that 1-minute extension, just let us know right before you do, so that the timekeeper can make sure he includes that into the time. And then if it gets too heated, if it gets too much, if it's too much of a battle, and I've got to call a timeout, I will call that timeout during the 5-minute rounds. Give us about 10 seconds to recoup, get back in our corners, drink your water, do whatever you got to do, and then we'll come back out swinging again. All right. Now we're going to begin with our question number one, our round number one. And this question comes from the category of Middle Earth, from Middle Earth. And the question is, which Middle Earth character would make a good Harry Potter-esque children's book series? So which of the Middle Earth characters, the bevy of which there are, would make a good solo book series for that character? And since Middle Earth, I believe, was David's strength, we're going to start with you, sir. So your 90 seconds will begin as soon as you begin talking.
I think the best character to do a Harry Potter-esque book series in Middle-earth is Legolas, mostly because I am a big fan of Harry Potter, as you guys know, and one of the things that interests me more about those kind of book series are the coming-of-age and teenager problems. So I chose Legolas because, first of all, he has lived through a lot of ages of Middle-earth. He has that complicated relationship with his father that we have seen in the Hobbit movies. His father is royalty. He wants him to be a king, but he's really not interested in that. He wants to be a warrior. So I really think that could be explored. Because that father and son tense relationship, it's something that even if it had been done a lot, it still works very well for those kind of stories. He's also in love with a woman that doesn't correspond him, and above all of that, his father doesn't approve of that woman because she's
30 seconds.
It's a commoner. There are a lot of things about Legolas. His mother died, his grandfather died, so I think Legolas is a good character to explore from his childhood to his adulthood.
You got 15 seconds left, David.
I am going to cut there.
All right. Excellent. Yes. If you do decide to concede the rest of your time, just let us know. I concede my time. No, perfect. No, it was excellent, actually. All right. So we've got Legolas, everyone's, most everyone's favorite bow slinging elf. All right. We got Legolas versus who? We're going to find out very shortly because Papa West, your 90 seconds begins when you do.
All right, so you have to ask yourself, what makes Harry Potter such a good book series? And I mean, the biggest thing is magic. The magic aspect of it is awesome. The fact that it gets really lighthearted and then also really dark at the same time and just battles back and forth between that. So there's really only one person in the Middle-earth world that we see that with, and that is Radagast the Brown. So I personally would love to see books based on him. First off, he's a character that we don't really know a ton about. Legolas, we've spent almost a day with. If you watch all the movies, pretty much know all of his story. Whereas Radagast is a really new character. You don't get a ton from him in the Middle-earth movies. If you venture off in the books, you do get a little bit more about him. But one thing that'd be really cool is just seeing him grow as a wizard, protecting the forest.
30 seconds.
And it could really build a full-on series of books. And you can also have little kids' books with it. I would love to read my 5-year-old. Radagast rides the bunny. Radagast feeds the bird. And just cool stuff like that. It opens up so much more than just a Harry Potter-esque book series.
10 seconds. All good?
I'm good.
All right. So we've heard our openings from each competitor. Now it's time for them to duke it out verbally, of course, in our 5-minute debate round. All right. We're going to see who's going to battle who's going to be the victor between Radagast the Brown and Legolas the Elf. All right, your 5 minutes begin as soon as the first person starts talking.
All right, so about Radagast, I actually think that the main thing about the Harry Potter-esque books is not really magic because that's Harry Potter, but we are looking to do a series of basically a coming-of-age series with a character we can follow. And I think Radagast's big problem is that he doesn't really interact with a lot of people, because you said we don't have information about him. We do. He actually came down to Earth. He was put on Earth by the Valar, and as exactly like other wizards, he doesn't age. As soon as he was put on the Earth, he was exactly like he is. He doesn't really evolve much. And I think for a series of books, you really need that character development. And in the case of Gandalf, he evolves because he interacts with people, and that's not the case of Radagast.
You're right. He doesn't interact with people, but he interacts with animals, which you see his growth. You see him become a more powerful wizard, and you can see, like, he's interacting with animals. He gets better. The animals get better. They trust him more. It's exactly what you're saying, except it's with animals and not people. And let's be honest, the way the Earth is going, the less interaction you have with actual people, the better. Animals are the true MVPs of the world.
I actually disagree with that. Animals make great animals. I agree. There are animal characters in books that actually can be great, but I think people and conversations, especially if you are going to go with kids, that those kind of books are actually meant to teach something. You have to teach the kids how to interact with the real world, and in the real world, you have to know how to interact with other people. And as I said, you have at least in my opinion, one of the things that Legolas has over Radagast is that he also interacts with animals because he lives in a forest. He interacts with a lot of people, and I think that the defying of the father and trying to be your own person, it's one of the things that those kind of kids books and kids series, young adult, coming of age, have to teach you. And Legolas is the perfect choice for that.
Fun fact, when I am reading a book, I am not trying to get life lessons out of that book. I'm trying to immerse myself in a new world. So saying that the reason yours is better is because Legolas interacts with people and you can learn to interact with people more isn't really a good statement. The easiest way to learn to interact with people is to actually go out in the world and interact with people. With a book, I want to immerse myself in a new world, see something fantastic, something that I would not see normally, and that's exactly what you get with Radagast. With Legolas, I mean, you said it, the father-son dynamic where the father is disappointed in his son, we see that all over the place. We're not getting anything new with Legolas. Plus, we've seen so much of him. I mean, we had the full Lord of the Rings, we had that character development where he was a stuck-up elf, hated the dwarves, and you see that great friendship between him and Gimli. And then you get into the Hobbit films, which, let's be honest, one of the biggest problems is they literally threw in Legolas, who had no reason to be in there. So just throwing him into anything isn't always a good thing. But during the entire Hobbit films, he's just that stuck-up, arrogant douche. I don't want to read about him. If this was after Lord of the Rings and seeing him and Gimli interacting, maybe that would be something cool to see. But that character before Lord of the Rings isn't a character that I want to know more about.
I actually disagree. We see in the Hobbits that he is defiant. We see in the Hobbits that he actually has a good heart, because every single time he has to help, even if he doesn't seem to want, he helps. And that's one of the things that I actually want to see in a book. And actually, I do disagree. I think books have to teach you something, especially if they are meant for kids. Harry Potter teaches you how to look at life. Harry Potter teaches you to be a good person. Harry Potter teaches you a lot of things about high school friendship. So yeah, I like to get into a book and get something fantastic that I cannot see in any other places, but I do like to get lessons. And I think seeing Legolas grow as a kid, how he overcomes his mother's death on the Orcs, how he wants to become a warrior instead of a king because of her and not follow his father's wishes. I really think that's over Radagast, because as I said, yeah, Radagast is a funny little character, but even if he evolves with animals, he doesn't really evolve. He has a mission, and he is
and time
there.
All right, so coming right at wrapping up the 5 minutes right there. Interesting arguments, interesting characters here. All right, now it's time to close it all up, wrap up your case. And since we started with David, we're going to go to Jacob. here for his 60-second closing. And as soon as you're ready, sir, you can begin speaking.
All right, so you said that Legolas likes to help people out in the Hobbit films. He really likes killing orcs, and that's about it. Again, you see him with the dwarves. He hates the dwarves. He doesn't really help them. He kills the orcs because they are invading his forest. He tries to force himself on Toriel. Yeah, I really want to learn about this character so much more. Again, if this was going to be after Lord of the Rings, where we see him as a really good character, then yeah, that would be something cool to watch. But I don't really want to see him growing up because I've seen where he starts off in The Hobbit, and he is a dick. I don't want to see how a cool Legolas kid turns into this dick. With Radagast, I mean, it's wide open to just about anything. And you can have that human interaction like you're wanting, except have it Radagast and animals and have a nice twist on it, something we have not seen. Unlike Legolas, which we have seen multiple times.
All right.
All right. So that's wrapping up Jacob's arguments. Now, David, we're going to hear from you. You're closing. And as soon as you're ready, let us know.
All right. I actually disagree that we've seen a lot about Legolas. He's actually a mystery. He doesn't really talk. He's a secondary character that we don't get a lot of his past, and this could open up more. And he is also a known character that will actually make people to buy this book. Also, he does help people in The Hobbit. Sure, he likes killing orcs, but he goes out to actually help Toriel. And even if he goes up to help the dwarves when in the final battle, in Battle of the Five Armies. I really think that you are underestimating his father's influence, and Legolas is not really a dick in those movies. While in Radagast, you say we have a lot of possibilities, but again, the mission he was given by the gods is the one he has to do. He has to protect the forest, and he cannot really, by law, go too
10 seconds.
I am going to cut it there.
All right, so he's wrapping up before the full time. Excellent. Okay, this definitely gives us a lot to chew on. So we're going to start with the judges. We're going to start with Madith right over there to make sure he's still with us, still awake. Oh, yeah, he is. Rubbing his hands together. He's excited to give us his answer. So, Madith, who's getting your point and why?
First of all, really good argument to both ends. Definitely an inspired way of thinking about the question, because when I saw the question, I was like, oh, okay, just making a Harry Potter-esque book with a Lord of the Rings character. Sure, why not? But really like inspired choices on both. So Radagast being obviously an lesser known character, and then Legolas being someone that some of us have known for a long time. For me, though, I'm going to go with David on this one. Just because I heard a lot more about what he wanted from the book series, of how it was dealing with like familial matters, dealing with obviously his father and the loss of his mother and grandfather as well, and having more of a coming of age thing, which, I mean, for me personally, that was more what Harry Potter was about. The magic was kind of like a side piece. So I kind of agreed with David more there. So yeah, this round I'm going with David based on those points.
All right. So first point for Madith goes to David. Mr. Elk, the mighty Elk, who's getting your point.
I am more than happy to give that point. I do think great arguments from both of them here. I do have a quick question for clarification for myself before I give out my point. Now, arguments introduced in the final minute in their closing statement. If this is a new argument that was not stated in a previous round, we should be giving slightly less credence to that. Is that correct?
If it's anything, it's just, I mean, not really, unless it's something that came out of left field that's a really new, where did this come from? Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I like what both of them said about this. I think that both these characters are very, very interesting choices. David made some good arguments about the familial relationships for Legolas. This is a character that we know can draw you into the world. It's someone that we don't know a lot about the early part of their life, and he's going to have a lot of different people interact with. He's got that that relationship with his father that's very, very important. And that stressor, although it's a relationship you see a lot in these sorts of books, coming of age books aimed at kids, YA novels, generally tend to follow formulas for a reason. So I think that is not necessarily going to knock off all the points for me. That being said, I think same thing kind of happened on Jacob's side here. He talked about Radagast dealing with the animals, which to me sounds like a great book for kids, talking to the animals, having adventures with the animals. So I think that maybe that didn't get knocked down as much by David. And both of them very smartly saying, one guy doesn't age, one guy's an elf who lives thousands of years. These are the longest coming of age books we're ever going to read. That being said, I think based on everything that was said here, and it's very, very tight for me on this one, I'm going to have to go with David as well, just because I think there's more of an understanding of Legolas coming to terms with who he is as he grows as a person. And I think David knocking down Radagast a bit on the fact that he is a wizard, he has a mission, he does not age. I think that's the point that really pushed it over, but great arguments on both sides.
All right, so we've got our first official point for David. My opinion in this doesn't really matter since we already got our points awarded, but I'll give it anyway. I actually would have gone with Jacob. I think he made some very strong arguments as to we've kind of heard Legolas's story enough. We spent a lot of time with him, and I personally, and Jacob really hit this on the nail on the head for me. Legolas was kind of a dick in a lot of the places, so I kind of agree with that. He's my least favorite character, and when he showed up in The Hobbit, I groaned audibly for a lot of it. So, so I was no, but I do. I mean, David had very good arguments for Legolas in that coming of age story, and how that most people, exactly what David or Elk said, Andrew said, that those formulas are there for a reason. But I really liked Jacob bringing in that we haven't seen a wizard in this context, an ageless wizard with these adventures with the animals. I know my kids personally love animals, so it would have been very, very interesting to go through that. It's good arguments on both sides. I would have gone with Jacob, but my opinion doesn't matter in this. First official point goes to David. All right, which brings us to our second question. Round number 2, second question. And as I drink my coffee here, filled with these certain characters, yes, the Marvel Universe characters, but we're going to steer away from the Marvel Cinematic Universe characters, because there are a bevy of characters in that, but even more bevy in the broader Marvel realm. So of all those characters, non-MCU characters, who would you most want to be? Whose powers would you want? Of all the other Marvel characters out there in the world, whose powers would you want and why? All right. We started with David during the Middle Earth. We're going to start with Jacob here. So, Jacob, your 90-second opening. Which Marvel character are you going to be? Begins when you start talking.
This is a really interesting question because there are a lot of Marvel characters out there. There are a lot of different powers. So when you think about it, it's like, which one specific do I want their powers? It's really a big into thought. Makes you think a lot. Think their pros, think their cons. So I was looking at one of my favorite families in Marvel Comics. No, I am not talking about the Fantastic Four. I'm talking about the Summers. Yes, Scott Summers, Cyclops, Havoc. I can never remember his first name. But I am going with their younger brother, the third of the three, Gabriel Summers, also known as Vulcan. A lot of people don't know about him because he hasn't been in the movies. That's why you need to read a comic book and do a little bit more research and everything. Vulcan is a lot like Captain Marvel, to bring it into the movies, to bring it into the MCU. So I'm going to go with Vulcan.
Oh, that was just your 30-second warning. You can still go if you want.
Oh, I thought you said 3 seconds. Yeah, he has the power to manipulate energy. He has the power to fly. He's telekinetic. He can shoot, use force fields. Really powerful dude. Powers that I would love to have. I would have a crap ton of fun with these powers. And he's like a normal guy too for a lot of his life. So it's being powerful but not being overpowerful.
Time.
Still living.
And I gave you
All right.
I gave him 5 extra seconds there because I feel like there was some confusion when I gave him the warning. I did not feel that would be fair.
Gotcha.
You're the man.
You're the man. Nice benevolent guy there. All right. So we've got Vulcan, not the Spock, but the other one, the Gabriel Summers.
Different Vulcan.
Exactly, as an answer. All right. So, David, sir, who do you choose and why?
Well, while looking at what powers will I want to have if I was myself, because I think that was the question, I thought that there is only one option, and that's one above all. And if you guys haven't read the comic books, one above all is literally the representation of the writers of the comic book. He is, as stated in Marvel, all-knowing, all-powerful. He cannot die. He can literally do everything he wants. He is the person who writes the universes. He can manipulate anything, everything he wants, anytime he wants. But that also gives me the opportunity to just be me and literally take down any problems I could have without the inconvenience of having to worry about people discovering my powers, because if someone does it, I will just make it not happen. So in my opinion, one above all is the perfect tool to live a happy life, a really,
30 seconds.
a really, really happy life without having to worry about your powers being a disadvantage, because we all know every single power comes with a price, except this one. This one, literally, you can get rid of that price because you will be writing your own story. And I think that's something we have all dreamed about someday. I'm going to cut that.
Okay, very close. 5 seconds left, but
Excellent. All right, so we've got very interesting arguments ahead of us here. We've got Vulcan Gabriel Summers versus one above all. All right, gentlemen, your 5-minute debate begins as soon as someone begins speaking.
So I just learned something very important about David, and y'all can all do with this as you will. David is a very manipulative person because you just said if someone finds out about your powers, you're just going to erase their memory. That's not necessarily a good thing. It's like in Men in Black with the neuralizer. I mean, Will Smith. How many times have you flashy thinged me? It's not always a good thing. Here's my biggest issue with one above all. David, and you can answer this question I'm about to ask you. Do you want to be God?
Well, that's interesting that you made me that question, because no, I don't really want to be God. And if I didn't want to be God, I would just make myself live a happy life without me even knowing I made myself live a happy life. So I think with the powers of one above all, you can literally do everything. You can tell to yourself, you don't know you are all powerful. You are going to just live your life. You are going to have a happy life. And I think that's a lot better than having these flashy powers of controlling the electricity, energy, and telekinetic, which I might add, you mentioned the manipulative part of my powers, but let's not forget that Vulcan can actually manipulate other people's powers, which he does with Jean Grey. He uses her powers without her permission. So if you are talking about manipulative, those powers are going to piss off a lot of people if you use them against someone without their permission, because you can make someone do something they don't want to do painfully, I may add.
Okay, but he has to be right there. Fun fact, you are not allowed to pick and choose your powers, David. One above all didn't get to say, hey, I'm just going to create the universe and then live my life the way I want to do it. No, he had to be all-knowing. Here's a fun fact about all-knowing. If I was all-knowing, I would know exactly what Medee's thinking right now, and that's not always a good thing to know. I've interacted with him a little bit. There's some things I don't want to know about him. But if you are one above all, if you have those powers, you have to be all-knowing. You have to know that stuff. You don't get to say, you know what, I don't feel like being all-powerful right now, so I'm just going to live the next 20 years off in a cabin in the woods. You have to have those powers all the time.
Why?
Because one above all doesn't just go off into the side and be like, I'm just going to do whatever I want. He is the god of the Marvel comics.
That's, the difference. That's what he is. But the question is, what will I do with those powers? So
yes,
I think
and
that's the difference. I can do whatever I want, and if it can't be done, I will make it able to be done. If that makes sense, I can literally do everything. I can write whatever I want, so I can make myself not know that I am not an all-knowing. Your argument is that I have to do that. I don't really have to if I don't want to, because again, I can do with the universe whatever I want. I can make myself not be one above all for 30 years, and no one will notice if I say no one will notice.
But the question is, whose powers do you want? You have to take the pros and the cons. You picked one above all, who is God. There's this really, really fun movie out there called Bruce Almighty. I don't know if you've watched it, but a Jim Carrey classic. He, for a week, has the power of God.
Yeah.
And at first, he's like, oh, this is really cool. I can do whatever I want. But then starts realizing that that's a lot. That's a lot of stress that you don't want. And he doesn't get to have that. You know what? I'm just going to take a couple of weeks off, because with the world still going, God still has to be there and still have to do his thing. One above all is in the same exact spot. If you are going to pretend to be one above all, if you're going to have his powers, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to take 50 years off. You're stuck doing that. Well, yes, having unlimited power is going to be cool. It comes at a price. To use some very wise words, great power comes with great responsibility.
30 seconds.
And the responsibility for one above all's powers, that's so much responsibility. You're not going to be able to handle that.
I actually disagree, because Jim Carrey may not be able to do that. One above all is. No one said one above all has to be there. As I said, he can do anything he wants, and there is no one to say, you can't do that. Yes, I can. If I want, I can take a time off. I can take it and say, the world is going to be okay without me.
And time.
All right. Whew. Interesting. Got heated there at the end for these power sets and these characters. All right. We've got our closings to wrap up all your argument, to plead your final case for this. And since we started with Jacob, we're going to go over to David for your closing first. So your 60-second closing begins when you do.
One of the biggest problems with Vulcan that I see is that he will have these powers in this society, and this society will not be acceptant of the powers, because we are just not going to do it. He's going to be haunted as soon as someone knows he has those powers. But in my case, one above all, as I said, can do whatever he wants. I will be able to live my life and, yes, make the world a better place. But if I decide that I have to have a time off, or I just want to live a life not knowing I have those powers, I could do it. This is the way to take off all the cons of a power, because I can just take them off with my powers. I can say, this power has no disadvantages, and the power will not have disadvantages because I said so. There is nothing I cannot do.
10 seconds.
And no one says to me, you have to do something. I answer to no one.
All right. We've heard that final argument here. Now we'll hear for Vulcan via Papa West. Your closing begins when you do.
So, David, yes, you can take 50 years off if you want to, but you're going to learn once you get back from those 50 years, the world has gone to shit. You have a lot to do to make it better. So you're really not going to be able to take 50 years off because you don't get that luxury. One above all never did that. With Vulcan, I mean, yeah, you're not going to do everything in with a lot of people, but he can fly in space, use his powers in space. Go off into the forest where there's no one and use his powers. Or if he is, like with a lot of people and crimes happening, if he uses his powers, he's going to be praised. There's not a lot of downside with Vulcan. He has power, but he doesn't have too much power. He's not in charge of the universe, which would be fun for a day, but it would just get horrible after a while, and you're stuck with it, no matter how much you don't want to be.
And time.
All right, coming right in there at the time marker. Whew. All right, interesting. My hat's off to both of you for picking characters lesser known, shall we say. Very interesting arguments for both. We're going to start with Andrew this time. Andrew, who gets your point and why?
Absolutely. First off, I got to say, I do love the choices. I think both of these are out-of-the-box choices, very good. A couple things real quick. I want to start off over on Jacob's side of things, and I want to say that Vulcan, after your last round, and I know it doesn't factor in, but after your last round arguing that Legolas was a bit of a jerk, I'm glad that somebody at least mentioned that Vulcan, not the nicest guy in the Marvel comics. You get the powers and not the personality, so that does work in your favor. And also the question of whether or not I happen to have seen a movie called Bruce Almighty to a guy who runs a movie trivia show on YouTube and hosts it. I'm not going to take that one personally either, but yes, definitely have seen that one. I think Vulcan is a very interesting choice. And then we go over to, and there's some good arguments to be made that those powers would be interesting. We go over to David, kind of cheating on this one, kind of use the God button. If you are God, if you could do anything, isn't that the best power? What are my responsibilities? And I think Jacob did a good job coming back at David and really kind of trying to diffuse that argument. He said, what are the ethics of this? What are the responsibilities of being a God? What are the limits of your powers? The old question, can God make a rock so large he could not lift it? And I think that's really fascinating. And what it really comes down to for me in the end on this one is David got stuck. He got stuck arguing against what Jacob was saying about his point, and that means we heard very little about Vulcan, which means by the time it came to the closing arguments, all he had to do was come in and say in his closing arguments something cool about Vulcan, and I was ready to give that point over because no arguments had really been made against him. And he said, you can fly in space, and in this case, because I didn't hear all that much knocking him down, got to give the point to Jacob.
All right, so our first point goes to Jacob from Andrew. And then I'll jump in here for the second point. To echo exactly what Andrew said, yeah, Jacob really hammered and really well done with that. With great power comes great responsibility kind of thing. And I think David made a very good use of that God button. Had some very interesting takes on that. Being God, he would actually change maybe his own information or his own feelings about what he has to do and what he doesn't have to do. In that sense, I thought that was pretty interesting. But I think I too am going to give my point to Mr. West. I think he had that some very, very interesting logical fallacies of having that God button, those powers that you really don't get to do certain things with. There is even a negative aspect to being all powerful ethically. So I thought that was a very interesting take on that. So our second official point will go to Jacob. Madith, now your point doesn't count, but who would you given your point to?
My girlfriend says that my point doesn't count a lot too, so I'm all right with that. First of all, I want to clarify something. Jacob, you said that nobody really wants to be in my head. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, it's probably true. That's, sometimes I'm in my head and I'm like, damn, I thought that. But no, like, for the same reasons you guys said, like how there wasn't really much said about Vulcan, and he is a bit of an asshole. We'll give him that. But one above all was kind of just the incarnation of God that Jack Kirby came up with. To kind of be the overseer of the multiverse for the Marvel Universe. So, yeah, I didn't really hear a lot knocking Vulcan, but it was mainly an argument about whether or not being one above all was going to be a good thing or not. So I didn't, just based on the fact that we didn't hear anything dissing Vulcan, I the same with you guys, would have to go with Papa West on this one. Although,
right,
Jacob, you with powers like that with your kids, I don't know how long your kids would last. Like sometimes they're getting pains in the ass, and you're like, you know what? Send me the face. I'm leaving you there.
There you
D,
go.
that was not the question.
That wasn't the question, I know. But I'm just imagining the situation where you're like 3 a.m. and they still haven't gone to bed. I swear to God, like, you know.
I'm going to put them in little force fields, throw them in space, let them play around for a little bit, and then let them come back down.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate timeout. All right. So
lower the oxygen just enough and knocks them out. We're good.
That's right. They fall asleep.
Yeah.
They're all good. All right. So now we've got a tie point wise. First point went to David. Second point goes to Jacob here. So, which makes this question very, very interesting and very necessary. Question number 3. We're going to move away from the Middle Earth, move away from the Marvel universe, and we're going to go to the realm of Star Wars. We're going to go to a galaxy far, far away where you might see one of Jacob's kids floating by in a bubble. Now, this question caused a bit of a stir behind the scenes, which I'm very excited about because that should make these answers very, very interesting. Because I threw a little extra homework on them. You know, you're not just answering a question, you're creating. You're going to become creators yourself. So the question put forth to them is, in the realm of the Star Wars, create a mythology for a group of people that are a balanced group in the Force, balanced with the dark, with the light, these Force users. They're well balanced in both the dark and the light. Create a mythology, create a group that falls into that category. So I'm very, very excited to hear these answers. And we started with Jacob just last time, so we're going to start with David now. Give us your mythology, your group. Tell us all about them. You've got 90 seconds to do so when you begin talking.
So I thought a lot about this, and the word I actually tried to focus on was balance. Balance is one of the most important things in Star Wars, balance in the Force, and who is the being that represents balance? That's the father. He lives in Mortis. He has 2 kids, the daughter and the son, who represent the light side and the dark side respectively. And he is the only one that can control them, representing the balance, the absolute balance in the Force. So I went, a society of people created by the father in Mortis that worship him and worship balance. They are powerful in the Force. But now that we are creating a mythology, they had to leave that planet because the son, dark side, as we all know, selfish, didn't want to share the power of the planet with them. So they have to go all off-world, and they have become a society, a distant society that worship the father and all
30 seconds.
Balance. I am going to explain this more, but they can manipulate the midichlorians using the dark side, but they are not in the light side as much. They create their life, they decide when to die, and they always have the same amount of individuals. They are a completely balanced society.
Interesting. All right. Oh, I knew this was going to be fun. All right, Papa, let's hear your group, your creation when you begin.
All right, so I'm going to ask everyone to close your eyes and think of this while I talk to you, but please do not fall asleep. So I'm going to make you an offer you cannot refuse. Plain and simple, Jedi Hitmen. Wouldn't that be awesome? I am pitching this as the Force Father, which, David, I now understand why you thought these would be very similar. Because this is the Godfather meets the Force. We're going to have a Mafia-style Force users who don't take shit from anyone. You come up to them if you have a problem with someone. They're going to take care of your problems if the price is right. If you wrong them, they will wrong you back in ways you cannot imagine. If you are out there being bad and just doing bad things and they see you, they will come after you. Because again, the question is balance. So they dwell in the dark side by how they kill people and run their business and stuff like that. But they don't do it out of anger like we've seen with other people. They do it out of motivation to not only protect their family, but also money. Money is a very good influence. They do it out of personal gain, which is something we never saw the Jedi do, which would be really cool to see.
And time.
Ooh, coming right at the time there. All right. This meets all my expectations. I cannot wait. And I see Beneath rubbing his hands together. He's as excited as I am about these 5 minutes here. These two using the Force Father, that phrase, in very different ways. This will be very fun and exciting. Your 5 minutes, gentlemen, begin when the first person starts talking.
All right, so you said a few things. Again, I want to focus on balance. This doesn't seem so balanced to me. I mean, Mafia is clearly dark side, even if they don't really like go all Sith. You said if you mess up with them, they are going to mess up with you worse. That's vengeance. You said they are going to come after you if you do bad. That's God complex. They are going to decide who does bad, because you didn't say that they have to be paid for it. They are going to be arrogant. You also said about money. That's too dark side for me. They are materialist. They have the arrogance to decide who they have to kill to make the world a better place. They have vengeance. I mean, also they are killing people for money. That's, for me, sounds too dark side. I am not seeing the light side there at all.
Well, it's also called balance. You see, there's one great thing about the Force Father, and it's going to make it sound like a Fast and Furious movie now. Family. You don't mess with family. The whole family aspect, the love for each other, that's where the light side's going to be. And here's the thing. You see, dark side, when I think of dark side, I think of hatred. This is not a group of people powered by hatred. That's how you get the dark side. That's how Darth Maul gets cut in half, falls down a chute to who knows where, and survives because he is powered by hatred. This group of people are not powered by hatred. They're just powered by personal gains, which, I mean, when you look at the Jedi's point of view, is dark side. When you look at normal people's point of view, that's everyday living. This is literally a normal group of people with extraordinary powers that use it for their gain.
You are focusing about hatred, and maybe they don't hate, but you also said that protecting the family is important. I mean, we saw what protecting family can do to a person. We saw it very clearly in the Star Wars saga. Anakin fell to the dark side. I am sorry, I'm seeing these people falling to the dark side too much when someone in their galaxy, in their family is killed. They may not hate, but for what you are describing, they are arrogant to think they can decide who's doing bad things and kill them, not even being paid for it. And when your family is hurt, they avenge their family. Vengeance, arrogance, those kind of things seem too heavy not to be dark side, not to fall to the dark side. Again, I'm sorry, I am not seeing the balance there. You say just one personal gains, and that's like the light side of it, or the protecting the family is the light side of it. Being too protective about something doesn't necessarily have to be light side. As I said, I'm putting the example of Anakin. He does whatever he has to do to protect Padme, and that costs both him and the galaxy. And he is one of the most famous Lord Siths in the universe. You are describing how Lord Vader happened.
Yes, but what drives Anakin to actually go to the dark side? A nice 4-letter word called hate. First time we ever see him really encompass the dark side is whenever he's killing the Sand People after his mom dies. That's because of hate. Literally, like, he yells at Obi-Wan, "I hate you." Hate. The Force Father, this area isn't gonna delve into hatred. Literally,
1 minute remaining.
Someone comes up to him, "I have an issue. This guy stole from my family." They're not hating. That's just, they're gonna go take care of business because someone is asking them to do them a favor. And the thing with yours, I don't see where they are Force users. I see where they worship. the father, but kind of like the Sith cultists in Rise of Skywalker. Okay, that's good and all. I don't see how they're Force users though. Whereas with mine, they're definitely Force users. You can see how they use the Force for them.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the Sand People. Okay, he hates the Sand People. Why? Because he loves his mother. Everything comes from love. So, yeah. And yeah, someone stole from the family. I'm going to take care of business. Yeah, it's not the same stealing than killing someone from your family. And that's going to go to hate.
Time.
Oof. All right. Oh, we got man, interesting arguments and interesting pulling explanations from all different aspects of the Star Wars universe. So this makes this interesting. So these closings to wrap up your case should be pretty good. So we started with David. So our closing first will go with Jacob. So Jacob, your 60 seconds begins when you do.
So you're right. The hatred of the Sand People did kind of start out for the love of his mother. But again, when you go in depth so much to where you kill every last one of them, the women and the children, it's more than just love. And especially with the Jedi, when they are taught, do not have emotional attachments, do not love, do not do personal gain. When they are trained to do that, when they start venturing off, they start going to the other side. You know, they always say preacher daughters are the worst. I married one, so I know they can get crazy. With the Force father, they're never raised with this. You have to be good. You have to be great. You cannot do any of this stuff. So you don't have that strict one way and then push off over to the other side. They're constantly in the middle. They're the reason they're not dark side is because they're not killing for personal gain. They're not powered by hatred. They do everything for a purpose.
Time.
Oof. All right. Mr. David, your closing argument when you're ready, sir.
All right, so Jacob asked how my society are Force users. I said they can manipulate the midi-chlorians to make their society strictly balanced. They can manipulate the midi-chlorians so they decide when to die. When someone has met his purpose, they die, they decide to die, and they use the midi-chlorians to create another life form. It might not be perfect, but it is balanced. And that's the word I have been focusing on. Balance. And for me, balance is having both light side and dark side. And in Jacob's case, he says they walk the middle. I am not seeing too light-sided there. He says that they don't kill for personal reason. Vengeance is a personal reason. And as he described it, he went on vengeance a lot. If they hurt their family, they are going to hurt them more. That is vengeance. That is going to be hatred, even if he likes it or not. If someone kills your father, you are going to hate that person, especially if you are so close to your father. I'm sorry, I cannot see the light side being equal to the dark side on that one.
And time.
All right. Whew. Interesting. Okay. I'm going to start with the judging here on this one. These are both two groups I want to follow. I want to watch a miniseries. I want to read a miniseries of comics based on them or books, however the information gets to me. So guys, get busy on those pitches and those writings assignments after this. But I think we heard more about Jacob's group because David was very adamant about putting out examples of how there is no balance because they're going to go too dark side heavy. So you spent a lot of time, David, throwing that at Jacob. And Jacob did a very good job at countering those. Almost everything you threw at him, he had a counter for it. I want to hear and see both of these groups, but I think I'm going to give it to Jacob just because he had enough good counters to fight off your saber attacks there, David. So I'm going to give my point to Jacob. Madith, what say you, sir?
I feel a tremble in the force. If I'm being completely honest, this is astounding. I really haven't made a decision yet, to be completely honest, because both are really good pitches that I want to indulge myself into. I mean, The Mandalorian came out, and I couldn't wait for the next week because it added to Star Wars mythology, and both of these would add in such a brilliant way. With David's kind of adding more towards like the original followers of the Force, if I understood him right, of like how the people who I guess the mortals, if I can say it that way, who were the first to discover like the higher beings of the Force, whereas Jacob's could take place probably any time or any place, but it's more about a specific group of people, like a family, I guess. I'm gonna go with David. Yeah.
All right.
You know what it is?
I love it. Even in the judging, we get drama. This is excellent.
Just because the last point I read was just like him talking about how everything comes from an emotion from over the edge. So whether it's love that led to him killing the Sand People, or it was hatred, like both on such opposite ends of the spectrum, but either way, you need something in the middle, and having an emotional attachment like that comes from loss, but you can control when you die, and it's always an equal amount of people in the community. That's where I'm going from. So I'm going to go with that point. Ask me like 5 minutes again, and I'll change my answer.
You'll change your answer. All right.
Really brilliant one, and I love this question.
Yeah, it was really great answers. Both of these guys created great answers here. Okay, so now, Andrew, you're going to be the tiebreaker. We got one for Jacob, one for David. Yeah. So where are you going?
I have to ask you real quick first, because I'm pretty sure I have a decision, but can I hear the wording of the question in its entirety, please?
The wording of the question was: create a mythology for a balanced group of dark light side Force users.
Okay, absolutely. So I want to say right out of the gate, I think very strong round for both of these guys. I think both of these are fascinating, very interesting ideas. David's maybe a little harder to translate to make the stories quite as interesting, because I'm going to say it right now, a Godfather-style group of Jedi hitmen, sign me up, in the style of The Mandalorian. I'm watching that for 3 days straight. That sounds amazing. Again, we got stuck a little bit on one of the two groups because there was a lot of talk about these hitmen and all the bad things they're doing as opposed to the good things they're doing. I do think David did make a couple of good points for his own that maybe disappeared a little bit because we didn't hear quite as much about them. He did point out that they could control their life force, so they can always make sure that there's the same number of them. I think that was important. That spoke to balance to me. They're controlling the force in a way to make sure that balance is maintained. And I got to agree a little bit with David on this one, Jacob. Guys who are out there killing for money, that does seem a little more dark side than light side to me. Because of that, and that alone, the only thing that's really settling in my mind, the question was balanced light and dark side Force users, and you could have gone in a different direction. Maybe there's a daughter in the family who wants to do right, and they're splitting off from each other, and the conflicts they get into. That's not totally balanced, but maybe then we'd have more light side. And for that reason, and that reason alone, I got to go to the guy who's wearing the Star Wars shirt and give it to David.
I mean, if I didn't get the Star Wars point, I would retire.
It was very
That
was a great round.
Can I go home real quick and get my Star Wars shirts?
Yes. Wow. I love this. The judges are even bringing everything into these, including what they're wearing. Yeah. So now it's going to be official. Andrew and Jacob are going to go write that book series, and then Medith and David, you're going to go write that other book series. So we have lots of content.
I honestly would personally rather read Jacob's series because I don't.
Absolutely. I think we all agree on that one.
I don't get it.
Yeah, like if it was a show, I'd watch Jacob's for sure. I'd love to see Marlon Brando like levitating from rocks or some shit and like saying Godfather lines. Like
balance in Star Wars is boring. Honestly, balance in Star Wars is boring. You want the not balance in Star Wars to make it interesting.
Oh no, that's what killed me too. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So everybody, we'll start with Jacobs because everybody wants to see that, and then we'll have the book series. So that'll be the mini series, and then the book series will be David's answer, and we'll get on that afterwards. All right. Wow. I loved this. Thank you guys. Both great arguments. Thank you, judges. Great responses to those arguments as well. Okay. Whew. So we've got David with 2 points, Jacob with 1 point. So this fourth question is going to be big. Going to be definitely big here. Now we're going to go to our other favorite comic book series or universe, and that's going to be the realm of DC. Right? In the realm of DC, and my personal favorite group that gets overlooked in DC, and that is the New Gods.
Preach.
I love me some New Gods. Yes, more New Gods all the time. So we've got all these streaming services out there, and each streaming service has their niche, their thing. But Amazon Prime, they need a little bit more of something. So I chose that because, I had a hat and I pulled the name out. But which New God character needs an Amazon Prime miniseries? That is the question put before our gentlemen here. So we're going to hear their answers. And I believe we started with David last time. We're going to start with Jacob here on this one. So Jacob, which New God character is going to get that Amazon Prime miniseries? Your answer when you're ready.
Can I go ahead and add my extra minute to my opening?
You certainly can. All right.
I'm gonna hop on that fun train that a lot of people are doing anyway. So let's do it.
Okay.
All right. So just like with the last question, I'm going to have everyone close their eyes and imagine as I say this. But again, please do not fall asleep because that would not be good. So the miniseries is going to open up with Darkseid killing all the New Gods, wanting to be the most powerful character in the DC universe. And in a last-ditch effort, one man goes off to Earth because he knows there is something there that is humanity's last hope before Darkseid just takes over the whole universe. The man who needs this Amazon Prime series is scot-free, Mr. Miracle. And as he's going across, this whole miniseries is him looking for people to help him take down Darkseid. He disguises himself as like a Harry Houdini character, having people put him in contraptions, seeing who can get him stuck. But of course, the super escape artist, Mr. Miracle, no matter what, is able to get out of everything. The reason why he needs this miniseries is because it opens the door for so much more than just Mr. Miracle and just the New Gods. You can start bringing in the Arrowverse into it. You can start bringing in the DCEU and the DCAU, just everything DC related as Mr. Miracle is going off trying to find these people. And he comes across a man named Bruce Wayne who isn't able to trap him, but he's able to get him a super cool uniform. And a man named Superman or Clark Kent who holds him as tight as he can to try to keep him there, but he's still able to get up. He's like, no, I've never had this much strength. I've never seen this much strength since Darkseid. You have Flash, who runs around in a cyclone and tries to keep him in the cyclone. And he immediately knows because the guy's running super fast. This guy's special. This is a team that I could use to help take on Darkseid, but we're missing one more person. And as they go looking for that last person, they come across a lady that he immediately falls in love with. I'm of course talking about Big Barda, and it just brings in.
Woo! Interesting. Get us in there, wanting to be in this realm, and then the time runs out. I guess we'll have to hear more in the closing and in the 5-minute debates. And I'm going to be as unbiased as possible. And I say this because hanging from my rearview mirror in my car right now, upside down in shackles, is a mini Scot-Free. Well, I'll be unbiased. I'll be unbiased because I'm very excited to hear David's answer here. So, David, who you got? Who's going to be that new God character that gets that miniseries? Your time begins when you do.
Well, for me, when you are doing a miniseries, you have to go with a main character that has a great arc, especially if we are going to take the arc from the comics. And for me, the only choice of the new gods is Orion. Orion, he is destined to be basically the savior of the DC universe, killing Darkseid. And I think that particular essence, the prophecy that says he is going to be the one to kill his father, makes a lot of conflict inside him. He will have to fight his brother and sisters like Kalibak. But I think he for the new gods, he is the one that strikes me as a main character. He goes to Earth. He is the best warrior of the new gods, but he still has to deal with his berserker rage. And
30 seconds.
That main character that actually has those flaws, that has to deal with ethics, is the one that you want to show in an Amazon Prime series. Okay.
All right. And he's conceding the rest of his time. Okay, this will be interesting. A battle we haven't seen a whole lot of with Scott Free, Mr. Miracle versus Orion, as far as who's going to battle it out for that miniseries. All right, gentlemen, your 5 minutes begins when the first person begins to speak.
I mean, David, they're both warriors. You can't just say, hey, Orion's a better warrior. They're both great fighters. And one thing you can pull is because Orion loves fighting, Mr. Miracle is actually a pacifist. You can have that in there to where he comes up to people, he comes up to Darkseid's minions. Hey, go away. Y'all don't want any part of this. And just seeing him try to talk them down, not wanting to fight him. But of course, because they're Darkseid's minions, they are very stupid. They're going to attack him, and he is able to beat them. So that whole fighting aspect, you get in both. I don't know why you're saying that that's better with yours.
Well, Orion is considered the best warrior amongst the new gods, so that for me is just like a fact. I don't know who would win in a fight because I don't think they never fought. I'm just saying for what it has been said in the comics. Also, I really think that being pacifist is cool, but for an Amazon Prime series, it's not really great. For me, it's not really great conflict. We have seen pacifist people, and sometimes it gets boring. And speaking of boring, in the comics, I really, correct me if I'm wrong, but I really think that Mr. Miracle's episodes will get a little repetitive because in the end, you have described three situations that are basically the same. Someone traps him and he escapes. Someone traps him and he escapes. While in Orion, you have an arc to follow. While he's going to be trying to control his berserker rage, he also was part of the Justice League, so you actually can have those heroes teaching him how to do good with the people, how to try and control that dark side that people like Batman have. Batman can teach him how to control his berserker rage, just how Bruce Wayne controls his need to kill people. I think also not to mention that we will also have in film the best moment, or one of the best moments in the DC comics, when Orion in the last chapter, in the last episode, rips off his father's heart from his chest.
I mean, you can have moments like that all over the place. So just having that specific moment, you can have it in the movies. You can have it anywhere. I don't see how you're getting a miniseries out of this is the only thing. You're going to talk about how Orion is struggling with his berserker rage, and you're building this character arc, but I don't see how that's the case. With Mr. Miracle, he is literally building a team to take on Darkseid. And you know what the great thing about my miniseries is you can have Orion in it too. The first episode is going to be Darkseid taking over. One really cool thing would have him take on all the new gods, which, by the way, they're all warriors, so you're not just getting that with Orion. You get taking down all the new gods, the amazing battle that's going on, and hey, let's turn it on its head. Let's have Darkseid rip Orion's heart out of his chest, and that's how he kills him. That'd be really cool to see too, because the thing is, with the miniseries, we need a villain. Most people who didn't read DC Comics a lot don't know why Darkseid's bad. I've heard his name probably, and I mean, with the name Darkseid, you know that's a big bad villain. So let's open it up with him killing these supposedly greatest warriors in the universe, and just by the skin of his teeth, one of them escapes.
Okay, you mentioned that people don't know who Darkseid will be if they don't read comics. They won't know who the new gods are if they don't read comics. So that won't really mean too much if he kills all of them. You also mentioned Big Barda. How is Mr. Miracle going to meet Big Barda if Darkseid killed her at the beginning with the new gods?
1 minute.
Speaking of Big Barda, are you going to include that moment when she and Superman are brainwashed and Mr. Miracle's wife is forced to make a porn video with Superman? I'm just throwing that out there because that could be I don't know if it's cool. You will have to actually include that there. But with Orion and Mr. Miracle, you can have Mr. Miracle in Orion's series as well. But for me, Mr. Miracle strikes me more like a side character than a main character for an Amazon Prime miniseries. And that conflict, you have a character that grows to make amends with the fact that he has to kill his father. He has to save the universe by killing his father and fighting his brothers. That is a huge conflict that you can explore in a series.
Okay, fun fact, David, just because it was in a comic book does not mean you have to put it in a movie.
Oh, time. Coming down with that last point right at time. Whew. All right. Yeah. This is very fascinating. These closing statements are going to, wow, I'm excited for these. All right. Since we started with Jacob, we're going to get our first closing with David here. So, David, your 60 seconds begins when you do, sir.
All right, so I think it is very important to point out that Mr. Miracle strikes more as a secondary character in Orion's series than the other way around. Sure, you can kill Orion in the first moment, but honestly, how many DC fans are going to riot about you? And you, not forget, you are making a mini series. You want it to be successful. You don't want the internet rage on that one. Especially if you are going to reverse the moment where Orion kills Darkseid with that really, really cool moment. Also, can I point out that Orion's suit is incredible, and it's going to be so great to see it on television. Mr. Miracle has a cape, and it's yellow and red. Doesn't really have the jetpack Orion does. And I know I'm stuck with this, but Orion is going to be more of a main character than Mr. Miracle will never be.
All right, and conceding the last few seconds there of his closing. All right, Papa West, let's hear your close when you're ready, sir.
So you said Orion's suit is amazing, and we want to see that. So he's Iron Man? I want to see something we haven't seen before. We've never seen Harry Houdini as a superhero. That would be awesome. In the entire miniseries, you have him battling Darkseid's minions. Words are hard to say sometimes, David. I'm sorry about that. They're trying to trick him, put him in the trap, and kill him, but they can't because he's able to get out of anything. You have the entire miniseries, him meeting these new characters to be a part of his team. And I don't think DC fans would riot after the first episode when Darkseid literally kills everybody. Orion included. And the whole fact of it's great because Orion's family, well, Steppenwolf is also Darkseid's family, and he wasn't really a great character
10 seconds.
Anywhere. So, just because he's family doesn't really mean anything. Let's bring in Mr. Miracle, something we haven't seen, and a lot of people's favorite new god character.
All right, coming right in at the time. Whew. All right. We're going to start judging with Medith. What do you think? Which one of these miniseries are you watching, sir?
First of all, I am very sweaty after this argument. Like this is some hardcore nerd stuff right here, and I love every second of it. I want to point out that you guys both picked characters that were traded for each other, like at youth. So they're, I guess they're like adoptive brother.
They are.
Never really had that kind of relationship, but whatever. We'll take anything we can get. Sorry, can I hear the wording of the question real quick? Like,
the wording of the question was, which New God character needs an Amazon Prime miniseries?
So starting off, obviously both really good arguments. Both characters that I've wanted to see on screen for a long time. New Gods just don't get their due. And even in Justice League with Steppenwolf on screen, didn't really show what Apocalypse is capable of. Hopefully the Snyder Cut, now that it's confirmed, can help with that. Don't give me that look.
That's a whole other argument. I'm
just hoping it's good.
Next week's show.
Yeah.
Next week's show, exactly.
So I'm going to do this solely based on which one sounded more intriguing to me, if I may. Now, I'm a big fan of both these characters. My favorite New God was Big Barda. But I'm going to go with David just because he kind of put it out there as like this sort of, I mean, Orion is the badass of the New Gods. I mean, finding the anti-life equation and then fighting Darkseid without using it as a matter of pride. It's and like having that arc from the comics take place, whereas Jacob definitely brought in like a newer kind of story of like, all right, we'll have him go to Earth and we'll meet Superman and Batman and all of our other favorite DC characters that are on Earth already. I definitely am intrigued by that show, but if I'm picking the show that I would prefer to watch of the two, for me personally, I would go with David's show about Orion. I disagree though. I don't think his costume was that great.
I like it.
Maybe it's just, maybe I'm an outlier in the DC community, but like the jetpack and like the whole like strand coming from his hips down to his feet, I always thought that was kind of ridiculous. Like it's just another thing for a villain to grab and throw you around by. So I was just like, all right, there it's there. But I might get hate for this too. I don't think Mr. Miracle's costume was all that either. Like it was. I wasn't a fan of either of their costumes. I'm sorry, but either way, for me personally, I would much rather see David's show. Although, if you put both of them on, I'll binge them both in a day.
Of course.
I think that's the easy solution.
Yes, exactly. Green light in both of them. All right, here we go. All right, so we get 1 point for David. So, Andrew, what is your elk brain telling you? Which show you want to watch?
I personally, I think the New Gods, fascinating characters by Jack Kirby, and I think they do potentially deserve something on TV. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet. Maybe they saw what happened with Marvel's Inhumans. Maybe they just don't have the CGI technology for Kirby dots yet. I don't know. But I would be very interested in seeing both. And one other note, and I'm going to pick from everybody here, everything that was said between both competitors, between the judges, everybody up here. Somehow we've managed to piece together the exact plot of the miniseries Countdown. And yes, the DC fans did riot, and no, it was not good. I'm amazed and pleased to have been here in the writer's room for it today. That being said, the argument about both of these characters, I think they're both very interesting. I thought we might hear some kind of pushback on Orion, like he's really just a Wolverine character, Berserker Rage, fighting everybody all the time. There was some pushback on Orion in maybe he's not the greatest warrior, although David was just pointing out that's what's said about him in there. He does have that destiny about Darkseid. And then on the other side, you have David knocking Mr. Miracle, saying he's a pacifist. He took Jacob's point very well, I think. He said he's a pacifist. That's not very interesting visually. I wish I had heard more from you, Jacob, about Mr. Miracle's ability to escape from things, the situations he could be put in. He could be underwater in a cage. He could be tied up in an interdimensional fold of some sort, and he's trapped with some kind of energy. And no matter what, you have finally a way to escape. I think there's something very visually exciting, storyline very interesting about that. So I wish I'd heard a little bit more about that. I mean, for me, between the two of these, it's got to come down to the age-old story. I know it's a bit cliche, but I have to kill my father before he destroys the world. It comes down to a knockdown, drag-out fight, and that final image, that idea of him just ripping the heart right out of his father's chest, that's going to seal the deal for me. I got to go with David.
All right, so that's 2 points for David, which means, and your winner of this nerd fight is David. Now, I again, we had this situation earlier. I would have gone with you, Papa West. I think you did give us enough of the different escape routines that Scott Free would have, especially with the characters that we all know and love on Earth. On Earth, I think, David has some beautiful visuals. Of course, that last image of him ripping Darkseid's heart out. Maybe they could put that in the Snyder Cut. Would be a very cool visual thing to see. But you also, David, gave us the Big Barda when she was brainwashed and made to do a movie with Superman. And I don't
remind me
about
of that.
I don't want to think about that. Yeah.
That's not canon. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. But again, my opinion in this last one doesn't really matter. And we have our winner. He came in very skeptical, but leaving our victor. So your first win in your first debate. David, how you feeling?
Shocked. I really thought I lost that last one. I mean, I was worried during the whole debate because Jacob knows a lot of shit about the Star Wars, and that was like the one I really needed to get. So I knew I was going to lose the Marvel one as soon as Jacob made his opening statement, because I just couldn't get a power that actually I like to have. So I went with the easy choice, I guess. But I am really amazed that I won the DC one. Maybe because while I was reading about Orion, I really wanted to watch that TV series. And I really don't know if I will be back to debate. I will have to reconsider, maybe retire while I'm on top, because this was too stressful, a lot more stressful than a trivia match. I don't know if I'm made for this. I have to make sure I am speaking correctly on top of the arguments, and that's really stressful. But I am really happy that I got it. Jacob made me sweat. He made great arguments. I mean, and thank you to the judges, I guess, for liking my pitches. No what else to say.
All right. Well, you speak far more eloquently than you think you do. So good work. Good job. Papa West, I loved a lot of what I would have watched every single show, every single book series that you came up with, all these different things. You unfortunately didn't pull this one out, but how you feeling?
I can make excuses of why I didn't win. But let's just be honest. David is a great competitor. And with debate, it comes down to, speaking well, but it does come down to knowledge a lot too. And David definitely has that knowledge thing in there. But I just want to say, how come we haven't seen the Force Father yet? Come on, Star Wars. Let's get that. But I am TMing it. I am TMing it right now. So once you do it, I have to be involved in the writer's room somehow.
No doubt you will.
Thank
you hear
you.
that? All people, Filoni, I guess, is now the new guy coming in. Get Papa West on your speed dial. All right, this has been a great battle. I was super excited. Well worth me getting up super early to host this one. And of course, my judges, got to thank you. But here a little bit your final statements about this whole argument, both these arguments overall. Andrew, what did you think overall of this battle?
I mean, I think that both competitors did perform incredibly well. I think that we got some really interesting stuff out of it. The points total was right down to the wire. Right at the end there, had David not taken that, obviously it is Jacob's match to win. But some great stuff pitched here. Again, I think it's hilarious that these guys ended up pitching us countdown somehow on that last question. Love the heck out of that. That was so great. But both these guys, great competitors. I think David, he got that confidence. He got in there. He did very well. So I think both of you guys should be proud of what you've done. I appreciate you having me here. I hope I was fair, impartial, that I was able to provide some input to everybody out there so they can understand that for me in these arguments, it came down to at many times just there was one point made more than the other person. I think that's really what it came down to. You've got to let me get invested in what you did. I will also say, even with David taking down the win, Papa West over there, you're absolutely right. If this was a pitch me a show contest, you're winning every round. I want to see everything you talked about today. So great job, both of you. And thank you guys so much for having me.
All right. Madith, what say you, sir? What did you think about this whole ordeal?
I mean, I got up early and it was worth it. This was a hell of a fight. Both of you guys brought it. I agree with my man the Elk over there that I really want to see every single show that you guys pitched tonight or this morning. Jesus. That's how you rubbing your coffee mug in my face just made it worse. I want to point that out. He's like, look at my coffee mug. And I was like, you awful human being. But no, like you guys did an astoundingly good job. I mean, David, I don't think I've met you before, but this was like a hell of a debut to make with me, man. Like,
thank you.
Your ideas and your knowledge of everything nerdy was remarkable. And Jacob, man, you know how I am with you. Like we mess around a lot, but again, man, bring in the heat in every match that you've been in. I didn't know how close this match was going to be when I came in, but this was a dogfight every round, and I love it.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. As dogs do, they scratch and they claw, and that's what we're doing here, getting to those finals in this Nerd Fights tournament. So good work, both competitors. Thank you, judges, and thank you, everybody watching. And make sure when you're out there reading those books, those comics, watching those TV shows, watching those movies, that you're taking notes. Because if it's anything to do with being a nerd, you might have to push up your glasses and get into the ring and fight it out. So mahalo, everyone, for being with us. And with that, we bid you aloha, ahui ho, and we'll see you next time.